I thought that I would talk a little bit about and share a little bit about Lent. And Lent is coming up in not that long at all. I think it starts on February 18th, I'm pretty sure. And I like to, think ahead and plan ahead for what I'm going to do and, try to, I guess, envision what I would like my Lent to look like. And every year that I do that, it never turns out how I started off envisioning it at the beginning. Some years are better than others, but the last few years I've really been struggling in my faith. It has been tested a lot as I have had to work through various traumas within my life, and I know I'm not the only one, and so I wanted to just share this aspect of my life and talk a little bit about it, and maybe something that I find helps me or has helped me can help somebody else. I think overall that Lent is not really a time to be broadcasting or advertising what you're giving up or what you're doing for Lent necessarily, but I think it's supposed to be between you and God and kept personal for the most part. I think that one of the things that is mentioned in Lent particularly is the encounter with like the Pharisees and their outward display of their righteousness, and how that is very much condemned. And when you pray, you're supposed to go to a quiet place by yourself and not make a show of it and things like that. And so I very much feel that way, and I very much think that way. But I also feel like, Jesus says at the end of this life, when we don't talk about him, when we don't talk about our faith, and we're kind of keeping that part hidden, just when we stand before him, he will, say, if you deny me, I will, deny you. And so I think that not just coming from like a fear perspective, like, I don't want Jesus to, or God to, not accept me because I didn't talk about him, but to, I think, talk about him because it can help others learn more about him, learn more about maybe things that they didn't know. Like there's so many things throughout my journey that I didn't know, and then somebody talked about them, and I ended up digging more into it, researching it, and learned so much. And so I think it's important to share aspects of our faith, and so that is what I am going to do this journey through Lent, not for my Lent, but as like part of going through Lent, is to maybe, if I come across something that I find is helpful, to share that. So Lent lasts a 6-week duration, and it is primarily a time for us where we are reflecting on Jesus's life leading up to his crucifixion and uniting ourselves in our sufferings to his suffering, and allowing that to help us to be in a deeper union or relationship with him. Also to use this time of fasting and prayer and almsgiving and abstinence from, different things that we choose to abstain from, to detach us from this world and, the things that we take for granted, the things that are little luxuries, or the things that are just like everyday things that are privileges, and we separate ourselves from that for this short duration of time, and it helps us to then focus on eternity, and lose our grip on, hanging on to these things that are of the world, I guess. So the things that people typically give up for Lent kind of vary. Usually people choose to give up something specific that they really enjoy. Lent is a time where it is not supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to challenge you. It's supposed to give you a bit of discomfort, and in that is where you are supposed to grow, spiritually, and just and become closer to God. And so I think a common thing that people choose to give up is sweets or candy. Sometimes people decide to give up something that they personally feel they struggle with, such as gossiping or complaining or being impatient or being angry. Sometimes if you are able to be in relationship with people around you that really get on your nerves, or you have some kind of like a grievance towards, to use that time to do something kind for those people. And if you're not able to be in relationship with people that you feel that way about because it's not safe, or you need to love some people from a distance for your physical or mental well-being, then to think about those people, wish them well, and pray for yourself as well, that your heart is softened, and that everybody in the situation has peace. And so that is what a lot of people, I think, decide to do during Lent as well. One thing that I did, not in regards to Lent necessarily, but just in my overall, I guess, daily habits, was when I started to get deeper into my faith and my journey with my faith, many years ago, probably over like a decade ago now, I was listening to the radio station, and it landed on a Christian radio station. It was called K-Love, which is kind of a well-known, I guess, Christian radio station around where I'm from. And I was not somebody that ever listened to Christian music. I didn't see myself as somebody that would really enjoy that. But when I came across it, there was like an advertisement or like a commercial type thing where they challenged you to listen to it for 30 days and see what kind of a difference it would make in your life. And I was curious, and so I decided to do that, and it changed my life completely. So I noticed that I became more calm, my nervous system became more regulated, I felt more peace, I felt a greater sense of like mental clarity. It really made a difference for me, and it really ended up changing my life, like I said. And I stuck with that habit for about, I would say, like 2 years. And then I went back to not listening just strictly to like secular music or things that I was listening to before, but kind of a combination of Christian music and what I had listened to throughout my life. And I noticed that it, again, made a difference. I was not as regulated as I had felt before. I wasn't as calm as I felt before. So I think if somebody was looking for an idea, whether, it's for Lent or just an idea of something to try, to maybe help you in your journey with your faith or in your journey with your mental health, for me that made a tremendous difference in my life. And maybe it would for you too, if that is something that you haven't tried. I wanted to talk about a book that I got a few years ago before I participated in Lent a few years ago. Usually I will try to find something to read during the 6 weeks, and at church, they usually will have a little devotional kind of a book, or you could even get one from like a bookstore, I guess, where there's daily readings. And so every morning or every night I would typically read something from there. But a few years ago I saw somebody giving book reviews. I don't think it was for Lent, I think it was just Catholic book reviews. And they were talking about this book right here. So I decided to get it and read it for Lent. And it is called Beckoning by Claudia McAdam. And it is a nonfiction, or it is a fiction book. So it is, just a story. It's not based off of any actual reality or anything like that. But it is really good because it actually puts you like within the story, makes you feel like you're there. And I love books like that. So I really enjoyed this. And I can just read the little description on the back in case anybody else, would think that this might be something that you would enjoy or would want to check out. I followed my father's gaze to the face of Yeshua. His head was turned to his right, his eyes still half open, even in death. And in that position it appeared as if he were looking directly at my father, the man who had inflicted the deep gash on his side. Yeshua's expression was one of sheer peace, totally incongruous with his bruised and bloodied body. I breathed deeply and took a tentative step backward. But my eyes traveled to the man's right arm nailed against the crossbeam, and I halted. His hand, scarlet beads dripped from the palm as if he squeezed a clump of overripe grapes. My eyes refused to pull away from that hand. The thumb and his two small fingers curled into the palm, but the two big fingers rested together, extended, but curved ever so slightly. They seemed to move. He was beckoning to me, come. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And instead of getting something new this year, I'm going to be reading this again because I forgot a lot of it. And thought that I would just mention it in case, somebody else maybe wants to check it out as well. I have been trying to remind myself more often, and I feel like, Jesus is also trying to remind me as well that what is most important is not checking things off of a to-do list. It is finding actual relationship with him. And I feel like Lent can become one of those times that turns into like a to-do list, like checking things off of the boxes to follow tradition or to, just get things done or to follow your plan or whatever it is, and lose sight of the meaning and the purpose behind Lent. And I know I can get caught up in that often, where I tend to get so focused on like following a list of things to do that it becomes something that I lose sight of the meaning of, the whole purpose of it and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so the other day I had just a really simple kind of a moment where I was taking out the garbage and I was walking and just noticing, my feet hitting the sidewalk as I was walking and seeing the trees around me and like the sky, and just really, it's kind of rare when I'm not in a moment where I feel like I'm detached or dissociated and I'm really present in my body and I'm able to, really be in the moment. And it was a beautiful day, and I was just looking around, I think in gratitude of creation, and feeling peace in that moment. And I felt God speak to my heart and just remind me, I do not give you a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And I always know when it is Jesus or God speaking to me, because it's often something that is related to what he would actually say. And so in that moment, I wasn't feeling anxious, but I just felt this sense of peace come over me, and this realization that I think what tends to get us feeling disconnected from God is when we aren't consciously aware of his presence within us and around us. And when we do become disconnected and dissociated from that awareness, and we lose that ability to receive what it is that he wants to give us in relationship with him, because we are so, not consciously aware of his presence. And that was one of the things that I just was thinking about, and thinking about how important it is to understand and to become aware of the reality that Jesus is truly present with us, just as if he were physically here. We might not be able to physically see him, but he is truly physically present with us, within us, and around us. And I think that in this day and age and time where it is just so crazy, it is important to remember that he does not give us a spirit of fear. He gives us a spirit of power, of love, and especially of a sound mind. It doesn't matter what's going on around you or even within you. If you can really focus on Jesus and find a way to become conscious enough to connect with him, he will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. He will give you a sound mind, and it will be almost, it'll be strange to be in a space where you wouldn't think that it would even be possible to have mental clarity going through all the things that you're going through, but he truly will and can do that and provide that for you. And so I am about to enter into Lent in a little bit here, and just thought that I would kind of talk a little bit about what it is, and there's so much more that I could say on it. I'm very tired. So I don't think that I'm going to extend this really beyond this, but just thought that I would talk a little bit about Lent, what it is. I hope that anyone out there who is struggling right now, that you hang in there. I know that that's easier said than done. And you're not alone. You truly are not alone.